So, um, we've all watched that classic movie scene where the hero finally decides to, change their life completely.
Right, the upbeat pop song kicks in. They're suddenly sweating in the gym.
Exactly. They work out for like 30 seconds, flip a few calendar pages, and boom, they're an entirely new optimized person. But in reality, that montage usually ends on day 3.
Yeah, leaving us in this sort of behavioral graveyard of abandoned gym memberships and dusty journals.
It's so true. Welcome to another deep dive, everyone. Today, we're exploring the actual mechanics of human behavior and the hidden and honestly deeply counterintuitive tower of tiny changes.
Right, and we're pulling our insights today from James Clear's work in Atomic Habits.
And if you're joining us today, you, the listener, you likely want to cut through the noise of those hollow life hacks. You want the fundamental truth of how to build knowledge and skills without, drowning in information overload.
Because our brains are practically hardwired to crave that loud cinematic transformation you mentioned, we want immediate results. And when we don't get them, we just assume the change is impossible.
We're going to map out exactly why those massive overhauls almost always fail. Before we go any further, though, I want you listening right now to think about a habit you've tried and maybe failed to build recently.
Hold on to that specific frustration.
Yeah, keep it in mind. Because to prove that these tiny changes aren't just empty self-help platitudes, we need to look at how they are the exact blueprint for world-class mastery. Let's start with the 110-year historic failure of British cycling.
Oh, it's a legacy of absolute mediocrity. I mean, since 1908, British riders had won just a single gold medal at the Olympics.
One medal in a century.
One and the Tour de France. 0 wins.
It was notoriously bad. It got to the point where one of the top bike manufacturers in Europe actually refused to sell gear to the British team.
Wait, really? They wouldn't even take their money? Nope. They genuinely believed that if other professionals saw the Brits riding their equipment, it would damage the brand's reputation.
That is staggering.
Yeah.
They were the laughingstock of the cycling world. But then, in 2003, they hired Dave Brailsford as the new performance director, and he brings in this philosophy called the aggregation of marginal gains. Okay, let's unpack this.
Let's do it.
The whole principle is about breaking down everything, like literally every single thing that goes into riding a bike and improving it by just 1%. I always think of it like tuning a Formula One race car.
That's a great way to look at it.
You don't just rip out the engine and hope for the best. You shave a single ounce of weight off a bolt. You adjust a rear wing by a millimeter to reduce drag. To the naked eye, it seems entirely invisible.
Right.
But at 200 miles an hour, over thousands of laps, that microscopic adjustment is the difference between first and last.
And Brailsford was obsessive about these 1% tweaks. I mean, we aren't just talking about buying better tires here. They rubbed alcohol on the tires to get, like, a fraction more grip. They had riders wear electrically heated overshorts to maintain ideal muscle temperature while they were just waiting to race.
They used biofeedback sensors, right, to monitor how every single rider responded to specific workouts.
Exactly. They even tested different massage gels to see which one promoted the fastest muscle recovery.
I read they brought a surgeon in to teach the riders the optimal way to wash their hands, just so they wouldn't catch a minor cold and miss a single day of training.
Yeah, and they brought specific pillows and mattresses to hotels for the best sleep. My favorite one, though, they painted the inside of the team truck stark white, just so they could spot tiny bits of dust that might degrade the finely tuned bikes.
That borders on madness.
What's fascinating here is the underlying mechanism of why this works. When we try to make a massive, sweeping life change, we inadvertently trigger the amygdala, the brain's threat detection center.
So the brain panics.
Exactly. It sees a huge shift as a threat to its homeostasis, its comfort zone, and it hits the brakes. That's why you burn out. But a 1% change, it slips completely under the radar.
It doesn't trigger the fight or flight response.
Right. The brain just accepts it.
And the results of slipping under the radar were unprecedented. Just 5 years after Brailsford took over, the team goes to the 2008 Beijing Olympics and wins an astounding 60% of the available gold medals.
And then came the Tour de France victories, 5 wins in 6 years.
Over a 10-year span, they captured 178 world championships. The math completely backs it up. If you can get just 1% better every day for 1 year, the compounding effect means you don't just get 365% better, you end up almost 38 times better.
Habits are the compound interest of self-improvement.
Yeah, but
Just like money multiplies, the effects of your habits multiply as you repeat them. But there is a dark side to this.
which is what?
Well, this slow pace of transformation makes it dangerously easy to let bad habits slide.
Because eating a greasy burger today doesn't make you gain 10 pounds by tomorrow morning.
Exactly. Think about an airplane taking off from Los Angeles heading for New York City. If the pilot adjusts the heading just 3.5 degrees south before takeoff, the nose of the plane moves just a few feet.
Barely noticeable.
Right. As a passenger, you wouldn't feel the shift at all. But magnified across the entire distance of the United States, that tiny invisible error means you end up landing in Washington, D.C. instead of New York.
A tiny shift in trajectory completely changes the destination over time. Now, it's one thing to implement 1% tweaks when you're a massive, well-funded sports organization with, an entire staff dedicated to washing hands properly.
Yeah, totally different scale.
It's quite another to apply these marginal gains when you are a regular person starting from rock bottom. And James Clear actually built this entire philosophy out of a deeply traumatic personal origin story.
He really did. During his sophomore year of high school, he suffered a horrific injury. A classmate took a full swing with a baseball bat. The bat slipped out of his hands, and it struck Clear directly between the eyes.
Oh my gosh. His nose was crushed into a U-shape, right? Multiple skull fractures.
Yeah, shattered eye sockets. His brain started swelling so rapidly he began having seizures, and his body literally started shutting down. He had to be medevaced to a larger hospital and placed into a medically induced coma.
And the recovery was brutal. When he finally woke up and tried to blow his nose, the pressure actually forced his left eye to bulge completely out of the socket.
The physical recovery alone was agonizing. It took him 8 months just to regain the ability to drive a car. He had to relearn basic motor patterns. Just trying to walk in a straight line at physical therapy was a challenge.
And on top of that physical trauma, when he finally tried to return to baseball a year later, he was the only junior cut from the varsity team.
So he is at absolute rock bottom.
But then, 2 years later, he starts college at Denison University. And instead of trying to make these sweeping life changes to catch up to his peers, he focuses on microscopic control.
Right, the 1% tweaks.
Exactly. He went to bed early. He kept his dorm room completely neat and tidy. He started lifting weights a few times a week. And 6 years later, he is an ESPN academic All-American. And he wins the university's highest academic honor, the President's Medal.
It's an incredible turnaround.
I have to push back here, though. I really struggle to reconcile this. Getting his sleep schedule right and making his bed in a messy dorm room turned him into an elite, medal-winning college athlete. That sounds, I don't know, it sounds like a massive oversimplification. How does tidying a desk actually lead to a championship?
I see why you'd be skeptical. On the surface, the two things seem totally disconnected, but neurologically, it is about the psychology of agency.
Okay, what do you mean by that?
When you experience trauma or a chaotic failure, you lose your sense of control. You feel like life is just happening to you. By controlling the microscopic environment, like the tidiness of a desk, he was slowly rebuilding the agency circuits in his brain.
Oh, I see.
It wasn't about the clean room itself. It was about proving to himself daily that he had control over his actions. That sense of control rippled into confidence. He improved his study habits, which led to straight A's. He lifted weights consistently, going from a 170-pound featherweight to a 200-pound athlete.
So the outcome is just a lagging measure of the habit.
Yes, exactly. Your physical fitness is a lagging measure of your training habits. Your financial wealth is a lagging measure of your saving habits. Your clutter is a lagging measure of your cleaning habits.
Even for you, the listener, your knowledge base is simply a lagging measure of your learning habits. You get what you repeat. So the argument is that we shouldn't worry about our current results. We need to obsess over our current trajectory.
Exactly. Focus on the direction.
But if the math of compounding is so powerful, and these tiny psychological wins are so effective, why is it so frustratingly hard to stick to them? Why do we all abandon the gym on day 4?
Because of the massive gap between how progress actually works versus how we expect it to work. Think about an ice cube. We all know water doesn't melt until it hits 32 degrees Fahrenheit.
Right.
If you have an ice cube in a 25-degree room and you slowly heat it to 26, 29, 31 degrees, the ice just sits there. You are putting energy into the room, but you see absolutely zero results.
And then at 32 degrees, the ice melts.
Exactly. A 1-degree shift unlocks a massive change.
And we see this invisible buildup everywhere in nature. Cancer spends 80% of its lifespan, completely undetectable by conventional scans, and then it can take over a body in a matter of months.
Bamboo is another great example. It can barely be seen for the first 5 years. It spends all its energy building massive, complex root systems underground, and then it explodes 90 feet into the air in just 6 weeks.
Here's where it gets really interesting to me. This biological reality directly combats our modern culture of instant gratification. We want the melt without sitting through the 25 to 31 degree phase.
We want the 90-foot bamboo forest tomorrow.
Exactly.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it introduces one of the most vital concepts in behavioral psychology, the plateau of latent potential.
The plateau of latent potential.
Yes. This is that painful valley where progress feels invisible. It's the valley of disappointment. When people complain about working hard and not seeing results, they assume their effort is being wasted. But it isn't wasted. It is being stored.
It's like winding an old vintage pocket watch.
Yeah.
You turn the dial, you feel the resistance, your fingers are doing the work, but the hands on the clock aren't moving yet. You are just storing kinetic energy in the spring.
That is a perfect way to look at it. All the visible action happens at 32 degrees. When you finally break through that plateau, the outside world will look at you and call you an overnight success.
Because they only see the melting ice.
Right, but it was the stored energy of all those invisible, unglamorous moments in the cold room.
It reminds me of the quote hanging in the San Antonio Spurs locker room. I think it's from Jacob Breeze. A stonecutter hammers away at a rock 100 times with not even a microscopic crack showing. But on the 101st blow, it splits cleanly in two.
And it wasn't that last blow that did it, but all the 100 strikes that came before.
Exactly. So if we must endure this plateau of latent potential, what do we focus on while we wait for the stored energy to release? The conventional wisdom is to set massive, audacious goals. But the text argues we actually need to completely abandon our obsession with goals.
Which goes against almost everything we're taught in corporate culture or, school. But there is a vital distinction here, brought up by Scott Adams. Goals are about the results you want to achieve. Systems are about the processes that lead to those results.
Like Bill Walsh, the legendary 3-time Super Bowl winning coach, his core philosophy was, the score takes care of itself.
Exactly. If you ignore the scoreboard and just focus on executing your daily system perfectly, the wins will naturally follow. There are 4 fundamental flaws with relying on goals. The first is survivorship bias.
Oh, right. We look at the people who win and assume their ambitious goal caused their success.
But every single Olympian at the starting line has the exact same goal to win the gold medal. If the winner and the losers share the same goal, the goal itself cannot be the differentiator. The system of training is what differentiates them.
That makes total sense. And the second problem is that achieving a goal is only a momentary change. Think about approaching a messy room. You summon the motivation, you clean it up, and you achieve your goal.
But if you maintain the sloppy, disorganized habits that caused the mess in the first place, you're just going to have a messy room again by next Friday.
You treated a symptom without curing the underlying disease.
Precisely. The third flaw is that goals artificially restrict your happiness. We constantly tell ourselves, I'll be happy when I get the promotion, or I'll be happy when I lose 15 pounds.
You are perpetually pushing joy off into the future.
And it creates this brutal either-or conflict. Either you succeed and you are worthy, or you fail and you are a disappointment. There is no middle ground.
And finally, the fourth problem is the yo-yo effect. Goals are actually at odds with long-term progress because of how dopamine works in the brain.
Think of runners who train obsessively for months, cross the finish line of a marathon, and then stop exercising entirely the next day.
Because the dopamine spike of the goal is gone.
Yeah.
The motivation just vanishes.
Right. A system, however, provides a steady, sustainable drip of dopamine just from executing the daily behavior. The purpose of setting a goal is to win the game, but the purpose of building a system is to continue playing the game.
I have to challenge this premise just a bit, though. As someone who genuinely loves learning and devouring information, if I don't set a goal to, say, read 50 books this year, aren't I just wandering aimlessly? Don't we need some sort of destination to keep from drifting?
It is a totally fair challenge. We aren't saying goals are entirely useless. The nuance is that goals are highly effective for setting direction, but systems are the only way to actually make progress.
Setting direction versus making progress.
Yeah. If you spend all your mental energy obsessing over the number 50, you aren't actually reading, you're just counting. But if you build a reliable system where you sit in a specific chair and read for 20 minutes every single night before bed, the progress happens automatically. The goal points you west, but the system is the engine driving the car.
That clarifies it perfectly. But to make an engine run smoothly so we never have to rely on white-knuckle willpower, we have to go one layer deeper than just our daily systems. We actually have to change the core of who we believe we are.
Behavior change works in 3 layers, much like an onion. The outermost layer is outcomes changing your results, like writing a book or losing weight. The middle layer is processes changing your habits, like implementing a new gym routine. But the deepest, most critical layer is identity.
Changing your beliefs, your worldview, and your self-image.
Exactly. There is a brilliant analogy about smoking that illustrates this perfectly. Imagine 2 different people who are trying to quit, and someone offers them a cigarette. The first person says, "No thanks, I'm trying to quit."
Which sounds completely reasonable and positive. But listen to the subtext. That person still identifies as a smoker who is merely trying to act like a non-smoker.
Right. They are hoping their behavior will change while their underlying beliefs remain exactly the same.
But the second person declines by saying, "No thanks, I'm not a smoker." It is a microscopic shift in vocabulary, but a seismic shift in identity. Smoking is a relic of their past, not a feature of their present.
Most of us try to change our habits by focusing on what we want to achieve. Those are outcome-based habits. But the true secret is building identity-based habits. We must start by focusing entirely on who we wish to become.
The ultimate realization here is that the goal is not to read a book. The goal is to become a reader.
The goal is not to run a marathon. The goal is to become a runner. Behind every system of actions is an invisible system of beliefs. You simply cannot sustain a behavior long-term if it fundamentally contradicts your internal identity.
So what does this all mean? Let's bring this right into the room with you, the listener. You clearly love devouring new information. The real takeaway from this deep dive isn't to walk away and set a goal to learn about habit formation today. The paradigm shift is recognizing that by choosing to listen to this, by engaging with these concepts, you are actively proving your identity.
You are a lifelong learner.
Every time you tune in, you're casting a microscopic vote for that identity. And that brings us to the true, literal meaning of the word atomic in Atomic Habits. People think it just means small.
Right, like a tiny fraction.
But an atom is the fundamental, indestructible building block of a larger system. These tiny habits are the literal atoms of our lives.
This raises an important question about the internal narratives we carry around all day. True behavior change is identity change. If your underlying beliefs about yourself don't shift, your habits will always eventually snap back like a rubber band to your old identity.
The process of building habits isn't just a productivity hack. It is the actual process of becoming yourself.
Exactly.
Let's distill all of this down. You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. Your habits are the compound interest of self-improvement. They aren't just chores to check off a list. They are actively writing the story of your identity, vote by vote, microscopic decision by microscopic decision.
And remember that time will mercilessly magnify whatever margin you feed it. Good habits make time your greatest ally. Bad habits make time your worst enemy. You have to be patient enough to survive the plateau of latent potential.
Stay in the cold room.
Yes, stay in the cold room and let your stored energy do its work.
It leaves you with a really profound, somewhat haunting thought to walk away with. If our habits are the literal atoms of our identity, and our identity is entirely shaped by the tiny, seemingly insignificant things we repeatedly do. Wait, think about it. Does that mean our true self isn't some fixed magical essence we are born with?
That's a deep question.
Does it mean we are actually constructing or maybe inadvertently destroying our very souls, 1% decision at a time? It changes the entire picture. It means we aren't waiting for a cinematic movie montage to happen to us. We are quietly, deliberately writing the script ourselves every single day.